The next player on the Reece Committee is the second chairman, B. Carroll Reece. Brasilia Carroll Reece was an American politician from Tennessee. He served in the United States House of Representatives for all but 6 years, from 1921 to 1961. A member of the conservative Old Guard faction of the Republican Party, Reece was a strong supporter of Ohio Senator Robert A. Taft, the leader of the GOP's conservative wing. Reece served as a delegate to the Republican National Conventions in 1928, 1932, 1936, 1940, 1944, and 1948. He was a member of the Board of Regents of the Smithsonian Institute in 1945 and 1946. According to Tennessee Encyclopedia, Reece was, quote, an opponent of FDR's New Deal social policies, close quote, and independently wealthy, so Reece served without salary during his tenure as GOP chair. In his private life, Reece became a successful businessman, serving as president of 3 banks in his district. He briefly published for the Bristol Herald-Courier, and in addition, he practiced law, having received his law degree from Cumberland University. He married the former Louise Goff, whose father and grandfather had represented West Virginia in the U.S. Senate. Interestingly, after his death, his wife completed his congressional term. As a side note, we will explain more about the Old Guard faction Reece was a member of. And I wonder if this is related to the Old Guard that you know who Q mentions. When the Republicans gained control of the House after the 1952 elections, Reece served as chairman of the Special Committee on Tax-exempt foundations. Reece led the House Special Committee to investigate tax-exempt foundations and comparable organizations, which investigated the use of funds by tax-exempt nonprofit organizations, and in particular foundations, to determine if they were using their funds to support communism in educational institutions. Reece selected attorney Norman Dodd to lead the investigation, which lasted 18 months. Reece would later declare that, quote, the evidence that has been gathered by the staff pointed to one simple underlying situation, namely that the major foundations, by subsidizing collectivistic-minded educators, had financed a socialist trend in American government, close quote. Reece died of cancer on March 19, 1961, just 2 months after being sworn in for his 18th term. According to history.house.gov, Louise Reece, his wife, was an inseparable political companion during her husband's long service as a Tennessee representative. She won a special election to succeed him after his death in 1961. Born to a wealthy family of bankers and lawyers, she was educated at private schools, which included the prestigious Miss Spence's School in New York City. In 1912, her grandfather, Nathan Goff, a former U.S. representative from West Virginia and a U.S. Circuit Court judge, was elected to the U.S. Senate. In 1917, she moved to Washington, D.C. with her family when her father was appointed a special assistant to the U.S. Attorney General. He worked in that capacity intermittently for 6 years, while also serving as the general counsel of the U.S. Shipping Board, and during the war as a commissioned Army colonel in the Judge Advocate General's Department. In 1924, Guy Goff won election to his father's old Senate seat in West Virginia. The Goff family lived in Washington, and she became immersed in the capital's social life. She left the comforts of home in 1920 to volunteer for an American relief effort in France, spearheaded by Anne Morgan, daughter of J.P. Morgan. Reece was deeply conservative and an isolationist, and forged a close political alliance with Senator Robert A. Taft of Ohio. He helped to shape and to amend such measures as the Food and Drug Act and the Federal Communications Act. He opposed much of the New Deal and was a fervent anti-communist during the early Cold War years. Reece was also the acknowledged leader of the Tennessee GOP and the most prominent of Southern Republicans. Louise Reece took the oath of office on May 23, 1961, and was assigned to the Committee on Public Works. She noted that her interest would be in the areas of juvenile delinquency and school building projects. In an effort to protect her district's glass industry, Reece paired with West Virginia Representative Cleveland Bailey in urging President John F. Kennedy to restore tariff rates on certain glass products. What I've been able to ascertain about Mr. Reece is that he has served a long time in the GOP. He also had many political ties in Tennessee. He also was part of this faction that is referred to as the quote-unquote old guard, and that's kind of piqued my interest, and we'll get into that later. But the next person on our list is Norman Dodd, which is who Reece appointed, the attorney that Reece appointed to investigate these tax-exempt foundations.